Hey, family, and happy Tuesday. Listen, are you creating a safe space in your home? I don't know if you know this, but the secret to the reason why we create a safe space is to forge strong, lasting connections. And if you know anything about me, you know that those things are really valuable to me. So I'm excited about tonight us diving into 4 signs that you have an emotionally safe home. We're going to jump right into it right after today's intro. You are excellence. Your mind is of excellence. Your visions are of excellence. Your unique superpower is nothing short of excellence. You amplify a voice of excellence. Your contribution to this world will be of excellence. You will achieve your highest goals and desires with excellence. Excellence in everything, every time. Happy Tuesday. If you have not yet met me, I'm Lanita Holston, and I teach practical communication skills to help parents bridge stronger relationships with the children or those that they love that are inside of their home. I am a national speaker, edutainer, and a proud philanthropist. And if you're joining me live, I want you to know that I'm really grateful that you're here. And let me know that you're here so I can shout you out by typing in the comments wherever you're watching. I am here. And if you are catching the replay, you can type in hashtag replay. So, y'all know me, I like to cut straight to the chase. I don't like just straight to it. But 4 signs of an emotionally safe home, that's what we'll be talking about today. And I don't know if you realize this or make the connection, but when we're talking about emotions, we're simply talking about the feelings that we have. Hey, Stacy. Hey, Stacy. Thank you so much for joining. So glad that you're here. And jump in if you have questions or comments. If something is good, I want you to type that like, dang, that was good. And the goal is always that our time together be efficient, succinct, and very practical. That's my goal. So if I've achieved that and you learn something and you're applying it to your home, I know I've done a good job. But when we're talking about emotions, we're really talking about our feelings. We're talking about what it means to have like health of feelings. So when you add safety to that, safety is a place that we go. It's a place of refuge. It's a place where we can be our most authentic self. So when you put them together, people say, "Well, what the heck is emotional safety?" It's a place where your feelings are a place of refuge. And I like to use plain language because we have a lot of like psychology and therapeutic and wellness language being used, but we need to know what they mean in lame terms. So when you think of safety, you also think of free of harm. You think of like there's nothing concerning your well-being. And so think of having a emotionally safe home where you have no concern that your well-being will not be met with love and then met with sensitivity. Essentially, that is exactly what emotionally safety means. So the biggest question that I know you should have for me is, okay, well, how do I do that? How do I create an emotionally safe home? And if that's why you're here, you're in a good place. And I want to start by saying it really starts with you. Emotional safety. Looks like I'm muted here. I'm going to make sure I am not. Emotional safety starts with you. So it's your display of your own feelings. It's your display of you being vulnerable. It's your display of your own insecurities. It's your display of your own fears, your disappointments. It's you verbalizing those things. And when I say verbalizing them, I don't mean the byproduct of you experiencing that, which is sometimes frustration, angry, short-temperedness. You verbalizing them looks like in a healthy way. Maybe you come home from work, you're frustrated, you just had a tough day, and the house is in disarray. You verbalizing that would simply say, okay, I really don't have the capacity, guys. Today was hard. I'm struggling. I don't even have the energy. Like, I don't even feel myself. I don't want to yell. Like, that's you being emotionally mature, really, but you verbalizing the true feelings that you feel. We can only teach what we model. So the reason why tonight's live is so important to me because parents commonly complain. They don't even ask, but they complain about, I just feel like I don't know what to say to my child because they don't never talk back, or I feel like they're disconnected. I feel like they always have this I don't want to be there face unless I'm doing something for them. Okay, so this is me attempting to solve that pain point that I get asked a lot. Why am I met with a brick wall when I'm attempting to communicate or provide or want to engage in communication with my teen. And so I am reverse engineering that challenge. I'm gonna call it a challenge that parents sometimes say that they have. I'm reverse engineering it to a solution. And so emotional safety starts with you. So you sharing those things in a healthy way. And it looks like you being honest about that up front. And if you are any form of familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Maslow is a psychologist. The basic form of need, the most basic at the low tier of the pyramid. I should have prepared one today. But it's shelter, and safety is next. Shelter is your physical place of being. It's consistency of a home. Right above that is safety, feeling like you belong, feeling like you're understood. That's pretty close to the bare necessity. And that's the point that I want to drive home today. While you might provide, and I'm using parent language, food on the table, clothes on the back, a place for you to sleep, that's the basic level of necessity. If we wanted to operate in a form of excellence, which would be more than just the minimum, y'all see how I turned that around there, then the next tier would be providing safety. And emotional safety is a great place to start. And a lot of the tools that we talk about, they don't cost you any money. A little patience, a little self-reflection, a little honesty, and a little transparency as well. So my question that I'm posing to parents, if you foster parent, if you godparent, if you coach, if you're in the life of a teen in any capacity, I want you to ask yourself, do I have a behavior pattern of expressing my frustrations, my fears, my insecurities, my disappointments? Do I have a habit of expressing those openly to that person that I love? Do I have a habit of that? Do they know me to come and say, like, I'm really struggling at work, or I'm really struggling because you modeling that, you're teaching that. And that's the very first way that you can begin to create a safe space. And you know the saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. We can demonstrate care by being open and transparent. So if that door has not been opened by you, then I know you don't expect that door to be opened by your team. So think of it that way. I also want you to scale back and think about all of the things that you were like. Do a role reversal. Let's say you are in your teen's shoes and they have, okay, keep in mind their level of development, because sometimes I think we forget that. We want them to operate at an adult level of development because some of them, quite frankly, look like an adult with body parts more defined than mine. We want them to behave that way, but they have not been, their development period has not arrived to the point for them to think that way logically. And so keeping that in mind, keeping their developmental appropriate age behavior in mind, I want you to think about, how can I model so that I am teaching vulnerability? So the second reason why this topic is important to me is because when you feel emotionally safe, you have the freedom to be your best self. You don't fear judgment. You don't fear like you have to shrink. You don't have your default mechanism is not to be mute. You have freedom of expression, obviously in a respectful way, of course, but there's no lid on your expression. You can truly be yourself in its ugliness, in its goofiness, in its weird awkwardness. When you have created a safe place, our children are able to do that. I have way too many examples of me being able to see a person's child in a whole nother light because they have an emotional safe space that was created for them, that they can truly be themselves. And I can see the transformation that happens when they're with a parent who has not done that. I also have seen parents who have created that emotional safe space and the child's behavior and their personality traits do not change. They are the same person. And that is beautiful. I always smile inside. And I can tell, you can sense when a person is being authentic to themselves and they're not changing. It's powerful. And I attribute that to the parent creating an emotionally safe space. So I want to share with you 4 ways in which you can do that, and we're going to jump out of here. I want to ask you, first way, are you practicing active listening? As a form of protection, we tend to fill in the blank, answer the question, come up with the solution when something is shared with us. We tend to immediately correct out of fear of danger. We fear they'll make the wrong decision. We want to provide a level of safety. That's just instinctual. What I'm asking you to do is, if you're looking to develop rapport and emotional safety, you have to listen. Fixing it immediately does not create a safe space. When someone shares something with you, they don't always want a solution. You know that. You may experience that with your girlfriends, or if you're married, with your partner. They want you to listen to how they feel. So if something is being brought to your attention, something that happened at school, something that happened in their friend group, something happening on their team, listen. You don't even have to say anything. Active listening means I am listening to understand sometimes what is not being said. So if you have an athlete and they slam the car door, I'm not saying that they should be slamming anything. But what I am saying is that they're human and they're learning to manage their emotions. So I'm saying, "Dad, you slammed the door kind of hard. Did you have a tough practice, or was how was practice?" You might say, "Man," and they start going off on this tangent. La 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 la. Initially, what I have observed, and even that I've experienced, is we want to say, "Well, what did you do to? Well, you must have done." That is not giving a safe space for expression. That would be an immediate shutdown. So just listen to the whole rant and affirm their feelings. Man, that sounds like that was pretty tough. You had a tough practice. That's an easy way. Just acknowledge and affirm. You don't have to agree, but when you attempt to fix something, you're almost invalidating or ignoring how they feel. And remember, everything around emotions is how a person feels. And so your cheat code is active listening, listening to what they're saying. And sometimes you're listening to what they're not saying and affirming that. So that's active listening. You don't always have to reply. You don't always have to respond. You don't always got to fix it, okay? All right. The second thing, and we talked about this when you're creating an emotionally safe home, is you have to share your feelings. This is probably the easiest way. And I don't mean share it by yelling. I don't mean share it by throwing things. Share it by slamming things. Share it by being enraged. That is projection of feelings. Sharing looks like, how would you want someone to share something with you and not transfer the energy of the feeling? And I'll be honest, these are very emotionally mature concepts. You almost have to have a lot of emotional management in order to do that. But you sharing how you feel is probably the easiest way. You could do this by, sometimes when if you have children, or you work in teens capacity, or you work with them, you may say, "Well, how was your day?" And sometimes they'll say, "Good, it was good." And if you're like me, you'll be like, "What's good about it?" And they'll like, "Well, no, no, no." What I normally do is then I share my day. I'll say, "Well, my day wasn't good. I wish I would have done this. I didn't get this done." I am being human. We forget to be human in our relationships that are somewhat mundane. So share those feelings. You might say, "I feel like I'm on a high. I'm on cloud 9 because God answered my prayers today." Your energy is transferable. So you might have had a great day, and maybe your teen or whomever you coach or are part of their lives, maybe they didn't. Maybe that transfer, maybe your good news um, gives them like permission to also think about something that was a highlight of their day. But remember, we can only teach what we model. So this is an easy way to share your feelings. As we're going to today's topic, I wanted to remind you, if you're looking for ways in which you and I can work together, sometimes people want to know, okay, how do I take what you just taught and apply it to like where I am in life? Well, you can hire me to bring me in to speak if you are part of an organization, if you work for a family service agency, or any family related small or large organizations. That could be a nonprofit, it could be a for-profit, it could be a school community. You can bring me in to speak to them. Also, you can hire me to train if you work with people who work front line with parents or family groups, foster care agency groups, social workers, that sort of thing. You can bring me in to train them in a set of soft skills. We can customize something that would be best relevant to your group. And the last way, we can partner. This is my favorite because this allows me to have a long-term relationship with the people whom are learning. And so I'm not just in there for 45 or 60 minutes. You get to have me for 3 to 6 months. And we develop what that looks like, what the learning outcomes are. And this is probably my favorite to do. So if you're thinking about, okay, how can I utilize what you're teaching? That is how. So let's jump into the third way. The third way we can create an emotionally safe home is we can lead with love. I say this all the time. When I have 7 habits of excellence, and I think this is the fifth. The fifth habit is love first, then respond. So one of the things that I've gotten really good at is not allowing someone else's energy to disrupt mine. So we call it matching other people's energy. That's what it would be called in 2023. So when someone brings something to you, they're upset, they're disgruntled, they're disappointed, they're irate. Matching someone else's energy would be you being in a good mood, but when you encounter them, your mood changes. One of the things that I have adapted is when I encounter someone, I love first and then respond. Loving first looks like allowing them to have their moment and then coming in and saying, like, that was pretty harsh, or is everything okay? Think about the compassion, and I gotta go spiritual for a second. Think about the compassion that God has for you when you are irate, when you are short tempered, when you are impatient about the things that He's doing for you in the back end. Think about the compassion that He had for you to come in, if you are saved, to come and live by His principles. That's what it means to love first and to lead with love. So you love them first, meet them where they are, and not like, if they're low, not down there, because Michelle Obama says when they go low, we go what? We go high. So responding in love looks like compassion, looks like patience, it looks like empathy, it looks like active listening. And so starting there first. So leading with love, great way. A mentee of mine that I have, one of the things that I noticed that she'll do, and we meet weekly, when she doesn't feel like it, I noticed that she's not a people person. She'll say, I don't feel like being bothered today. Now, that could be offensive, right? Without the context of me knowing her personality. I think she's an introvert, so being around people is like a energy sucker. So if her energy is already low, and then imagine me, I'm all bubbly hot, like how you're experiencing me. This is me most of the time. I'm like that with her. So she probably think about me and get immediately overwhelmed. So she said when we were meeting last week, she was like, I just don't feel like being bothered today. Me leading with love is giving her what we would call space to feel how she feel. So not being like, well, what's wrong with you? Why do you feel like that? Instead, I said, well, walk me through your day today. And she shared. And I think she was surprised that I wasn't pushy in making her feel like it. Eventually, she opened up, and I couldn't tell that she didn't want to be bothered with people. She laughed and talked because how she told me her boundary at that time, which was don't do too much. And I honored that. So sometimes leading with love looks like honoring the boundary. So if you see someone who looks exhausted, or they already look like they're struggling throughout their day, pushing them to tell you what's wrong or pushing them to change their behavior might not be honoring a boundary. Leading with love will look like, I noticed that you're a little funky today. Are you okay? And when you have an emotionally safe space, they will give you a response. They will say something like, I'm just tired. Sometimes I've even heard them say, I don't even know. I just don't feel, I don't even know what's wrong with me. And then they will laugh because you are giving them space to identify the feeling, like calling it out. You're saying, I see you. Are you okay? And allowing them to feel however they feel without attempting to come in and solving it, or without attempting to invalidate that. So one of the ways we invalidate people's feelings when we ask them, is everything okay? We say, girl, people got worse problems than that. That's an invalidation. Or that's what you upset about? That's an invalidation. Or, oh, I thought it was more serious than that. That's an invalidation. These are very easy things that we feel like, okay, I didn't mean anything by it, but your intention versus the impact is what makes the difference. So your intention should be around sensitivity. So even if something is shared that you don't feel like is that serious, and keep that to yourself and validate their feelings. Priority should be honoring a safe space or creating a safe space. Yes, Stacey said, are you providing a safe space? And if any of this sounds like, man, that's a lot, it is. It's a whole lot. It's a lot. For me to come and tell you that it ain't a lot would be a lie. This is hard work. You see, the title of the show is called Excellence in Everything. I don't come on here on Tuesdays to give you the basic requirements of life. I want to see our kids personify excellence, which is the highest quality of effort. So it takes more energy. It takes more time. It takes stronger skill sets. And it takes practice. These are not things that you can just wake up tomorrow and say, you know what? It's about to be a safe space tomorrow. It's going to take time to build. So pull out your Legos and your patient skills and watch. Over time, you can see a transformation, but you got to be patient. Hey, Crystal, thank you for coming by and hanging out with us. I'm really, really glad that you are enjoying today's content. Hey, Tony, you're back again 2 weeks in a row. Always excited to see you. I noticed those things, by the way. Nothing goes unnoticed because you guys could be anywhere on Tuesday night, especially at this time, because I'm going to be in my bed after this. All right, well, I'm 23 minutes in. Last thing I want to share is an easy way for you to create emotional safety is honor their talents. It doesn't matter how small it is. Let me tell you, when you're good at something, it does something to your self-esteem. When you're good at doing hair, when you're good at grooming yourself, when you're good at picking out the best sneakers, when you're good at making the best pancakes, when you're good at making the best, you make the best bed. I'm trying to think of things that the teens do well. When you're good at solving problems quickly, when you're really good with words, when you're really funny, acknowledging that. When you're good at something, it makes you feel like you have an advantage over someone else. It's really your competitive, in the workplace, we call it your competitive advantage. But your talent is something that when you have something distinctly special about you, it's your differentiator. And I'll give you an example of this. I have a sister, we're 10 years apart. When she was 4, my mom enrolled her in private music lessons because while she was at her godmom's house who had a piano, she taught her Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in 20 minutes at 4. And she was able to play it. She taught it to her and then she could do it on her own. So that was a very instinctual musical gift. So my mom enrolled her into private music lessons. So she's been classically trained since she was 4. Her undergraduate study was in music. She graduated 2 years ago. Music was her superpower. When she was in her teen years, now music isn't something that we really value or deem important because in our minds, it doesn't translate to immediate, secure income. So it's minimized. Its value is minimized. What I would explain to her, because at 16, she said she wanted to be a music professor. What I would explain to her is that people are going to minimize this thing that makes you distinctly different. We would have these conversations. She's 14, 15. They're going to say that's not going to make any money. They're going to say, what are you going to do with that? I want you to get so clear about why you're passionate about music and be serious about honing your craft because that is your superpower. God gifted you that ability. No one else in our family plays an instrument, by the way. And if he gave it to you, it's for good reason. And so when she would have music recitals, I'm there. I wouldn't miss it because that was me honoring her talent, even still to this day. So fast forward to this day, she has private music clients. She has 4 of them, and she also teaches music for a nonprofit. That's her full-time job. The only thing she does to make money is teach music, and she loves it. Her goal is to open a music studio so she can do her own, have a space to host her lessons. And the long-term goal is to create, you know how a salon plaza has salon suites? Well, suites for other musicians who are like her. That's her long-term goal. A lot of her self-esteem in college, in high school, I hope she's not watching this because she'll say this, but it was really rooted in that ability. When she would get up there and play Beethoven in 4-inch heels and a fitted like A-line dress and her whole 22 inches, people weren't expecting that. You tell me how many classically trained pianists you've seen at 17 play Beethoven at, I ain't seen them. Look, my camera is moving. It's trying to adjust to my movement because that's how fast her fingers would move. It was her zone of genius. It had a lot to do with her building her confidence blocks. What I'm proposing to you is, how can you honor the talents that you see, even if you don't think that they'll make any money, even if you don't think that they're worthy to be honored, even if you don't think that they amount to anything. But identifying, calling out when you see them doing things that are great. You are so good with numbers and math because what you're really doing is sowing seeds. I'll say this, I gotta put my little spiritual hat on. It's not by happenstance that we're good at something. It is not by happenstance. There's a lot of things I'm not good at. There's a few things that I'm very good at. And to be honest, when I'm doing those things is when I feel the most fulfillment. I don't think that's by happenstance. So when you see natural, meaning you didn't have to train or teach this thing, that's natural. You could just do it without any training. When you see that in a young person, honor that by praising it. Honor that by supporting it. Honor that by sharing it off the rooftop at what they do. Honor that by nurturing it. That is one way to create an emotional safe space in your home. So we talked about 4 ways today. We talked about actively listening. We talked about leading with love. We talked about sharing your feelings. And then we also talked about honoring the talents that you see inside of them. I am curious, for those of you who are watching, which one of the 4 that we talked about today hits home for you? Like, okay, that's an area that I can start in. And each of them have different depths to emotional maturity or emotional comfortability. Because sometimes you may say, well, I'm not even sure I feel comfortable expressing my emotions out loud to myself. Like, that would be a real challenge. If you identify with that, maybe you will start with active listening, because it doesn't require you to have a verbal response or reply. That's an easy way. If you feel like you're growing in that area of emotional maturity, you can start there. Sharing your feelings is like opposite of active listening. You in it, like you feel competent and comfortable enough to do that. And that demonstrates a level of emotional maturity as well. Leading with love, I think this is probably the one that takes the most patience. It's not instinctual to love someone when they are dishonoring or disrespecting you. That's not instinctual. In fact, most people would say that's crazy. It's crazy. Tony said active listening was the one that she today, that was probably the one that stood out the most that she could do. Yeah, and it's easy. It's a great place to start. Thank you for sharing that. I'm trying to think. I think I'm really good. Out of all of them, I'm really good with. Actually, I'm actually good with all of them. I am good with all of them. I get things out of people, not even just teens, but adults too, that I wish they didn't tell me. Like, okay, that's too safe. We too safe right now. And I attribute that because a lot of the behaviors and characteristics that we talked about tonight, I guess I have wow, I'm having a revelation like live. I've adapted as a part of like um my way of loving and creating community. Hmm. That was not scripted. I'm having a moment here. But if you are just tuning in and you didn't catch the first half of our talks today, we talked about creating an emotionally safe space for home. The premise of our conversation is that when we create a safe space, we are giving our kids permission and freedom to be their absolute best and true self, the most authentic version of who they are. Do you know what it's like to be in a space where you can be who you really are? Some of us can't even be that in our own house, with our own friends, at our own jobs. Like, we ain't even talking about code switching. Not even that. I'm talking about the root of who you are. Like, talk about, this is not adding up the way I wanted to. I am disappointed. Like, think about that. If you could have the freedom and the place to be who you really are, and you felt supported and listened to, and you felt like people understood and they gave you great counsel, meaning advice. If you could experience that, how much greater could you achieve your highest potential? That's the point of us creating this emotional safe space at home. Remember, on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first one is shelter, the second one is safety, belonging, the feeling of feeling like this is my space, it's my people. And if you can create that at home, that's a great foundation of building someone of really good, authentic character. And that's a very invaluable and transferable skill that I want more of us to build with our kids. And I want to leave you with this: lack of emotional safety leads to disconnect. So if you find that your teen is disconnected or disengaged, disinterested, it's hard to talk to, go back to what we talked about today. And it's not going to happen overnight. So you have to show this level of interest consistently, even when you don't feel like it, even when you don't have the capacity, even when life is lifing. In those moments, remember I talked about share your feelings. Just say that. I can't do it right now. I just need 20 minutes. Just say that in a way in which it can be received. That's all I'm saying. That is it. That is it. Okay, Tony says, I have 4 adult children, so this was definitely a good starting point with them. Oh, I love that. Yeah, adult. I always say I want to win them now and not have to win them back as adults later. Like if I had children today, I want to win our relationship now, because them being home now, to some degree, they have an obligation to talk to you. But when they are not there, there is no obligation. They are not obligated to answer your calls. And some will say, well, I pay the bill. Well, what happens when you don't? They're not obligated to come visit you. They're not obligated to care for you. They're not. I would love if they would have an obligation to. But part of that is them feeling like, man, that's such a safe place. I want to have relationship with my home. I want to have that. Thank you so much, Jordan, for stopping by. Jordan said, well said. I appreciate that. I appreciate you stopping by and being here today. So I am doing a new series starting next week, and it's going to be Top Tier Family Talk Edition. Top tier meaning the highest quality of effort in your words. So if you watch today and you were like, listen, I'm going to need some help with the words. I want to create the space, but the words and language that I currently got right now is not going to cut it. That's exactly what we'll be talking about next week. So Top Tier Talk series for the month, for the remaining time of March. I'm excited about that. Thank you for joining tonight. If you didn't have a chance to drop your takeaway and let me know that you caught today's content, just drop it in the comments. I'll check them when we complete tonight's episode. It'll also be uploaded on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. I absolutely love you. There's nothing you can do about it. And I'll see you next Tuesday, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, PM. Bye. You are excellence. Your mind is of excellence. Your visions are of excellence. Your unique superpower is nothing short of excellence.